G'day guys, Steve Lee. I'm sort of doing a bit of a review today on a gun. I don't usually do reviews, but this gun is going to be sort of leaving my premises pretty shortly because I have been chasing a gun like this for quite some time. And now what this is, it's an M14, and this gun was used for the US Army probably since about 1959 up until 1970. I think they used it. Sort of replaced the M1 carbine and a few other guns. Now the reason I've been chasing one of these is because as a contract shooter, most government contracts we get in Australia, you've got to use a 308 or 7.62 by 51. You can't use anything smaller. And so I've been chasing one, and if you know anything about Australian gun laws, it's virtually impossible to import guns into Australia. It's extremely hard. You can do it through the Attorney General's department, but they just make it complicated and it's just hard to do. So I finally sourced one of these. Now this guy who had this had it unregistered, and I put it back on the books, and as a dealer I was able to put it all through the books and everything. And I then went to put it across to my contract shooting D-class license, sent the registration and everything into the New South Wales registry, and they then informed me that there's a clause within the legislation that states any D-class holder cannot use a gun that was used or designed for military purposes. There's a bit of confusion in that as well, because I already have a few of those on my license, which they've sort of overlooked at the moment, but there's a few other people who have been trying to apply for D-class weapons and have been knocked back as well. So at the moment they've knocked back the M14, the M1A. I don't think they've started knocking back the SKS or the SKK yet, but I'm presuming they're going to look at that. Most of those are all ex-military guns, but it's very limited on what you can have as a military firearm. There's not a military firearm. The only ones they have at the moment, the goat over there, can you just have a look at that? That's my new friend Goaty, eh? It's like a goat that I used to know. He's eating my ammo. Get out of it! Anyway, back to the gun. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The doesn't leave us too many guns that we can actually have. So the Mini 14's been passed as a civilian gun, as we all know it is. Another one's called the Valmet Hunter, which is a 308 made by Browning. Other than that gun, there is one, I can't remember, WF M4, where a guy in Victoria just recently made 10 M4s, but under his own branding, which is Warwick Firearms. Great little gun. Now he's registered those for civilian purposes, so that is now not classed as a military firearm because he only made it for civilian use. But to find anyone who manufactures D-class or semi-autos in Australia is virtually impossible. He's the first guy I've heard of since the 96 buyback. So the only guns we have left in Australia are the ones that were sort of like hung on to from the 96 buyback, and anything that people bring up from underground that they've kept unregistered and they've now put it onto the registration. So it is really hard to find any semi-autos here in Australia. But I got this one finally for my contract license to shoot out of choppers and everything, because the government requires that I've got to have a 308, but then when I went to register this, they then decided that I wasn't able to have it because it's an ex-military gun. I was going to argue that this was a, one argument that I would have had would be that they used to be a military gun because the legislation states that is a military gun, and I said, well, this was a military gun, but unfortunately the US, because it's such a good firearm, they still use it in limited places in their army. So these guns are still used basically by the military armed forces, and one other army that uses them that I know of is the Australian Army. They have these in, they're not used a lot, but they have it for sort of specific purposes, and they're a great firearm. When the US had them, they actually put them into full auto as well, but being a 308, it was a little hard to control, as you can understand. And this particular one that I have has the lug there, which could be converted to full auto, I guess, if I've got the other right components for it. Now what I'm going to do today is just I'm going to have a few shots of this, because I'm going to actually have to say goodbye to it, because I'm going to have to sell it because I'm not able to use it on my D-class, so I'm going to have to move it on. Now, one problem I had was I put it up for sale on usedguns.com.au, and I don't mind promoting those guys because I think they do a great job for the gun industry here in Australia. If you want to sell a second-hand gun, go to usedguns.com.au and put your gun up there. I'll put this up, and it took a while to sell, but then I found a guy, a contract shooter in Queensland. Now they're still able to have these guns in Queensland. I think Victorians are allowed to have them as well, and I think maybe in South Australia, but the D-class licenses are pretty rare in all those states. In New South Wales, to give you some idea of how few D-class weapons there are in New South Wales. Over the last 3 or 4 months when they were reviewing what guns were to be used, for the D-class they had 8 applications. So that's the whole of our state. There was 8 applications in 3 months that they had to review the gun. So that gives you an idea on how many of these are. They're very, very few and very hard to find. There's just not a lot of them around. So I'm going to still be looking for another 308. Probably go with a Valmay Hunter because I don't have many other choices. And other option I've got is probably an L1A1. And I'll just see how the registry feels about that. But I'm going to have a couple of shots of this today, and to show you what it can do. I did put a mount on here for a scope because I was going to put a Neotech on here, and I had it on there when I first got it, but now unable to use it. So I took it off. I've left the mount on. That was even hard to import from the States, but I got that through, and this is the problems we're going through down here in Australia. So also feel for the guys in the US at the moment with the problems they're having with their gun laws. And I've got to tell you that what we found down here is once they start taking your gun rights away, well, we never had the right, but once they start taking your gun privileges away, as they call it in Australia, they just don't stop. You know, they talk about this massacre hasn't happened since '96, and it's funny that in 2004 they then went and took all our high capacity, high caliber handguns away from us as well, because they called it a massacre back then of a guy that went mad in a university here. So they're trying to brag that since 1996 there's been a massacre in Australia, which isn't technically true. And they don't stop, you know, they just keep making it harder and harder on law-abiding citizens, and they make it harder and harder on us to get guns. It's so I feel for you guys in the States, you've got to fight this fight really strong, because if you guys don't win, I don't know where we're going to be down here either. You know, I want to get some semi-autos, but if you guys aren't able to sell them or export them, we're in trouble down here as well. So anyway, I'm going to have a few shots of this, and just give you a bit of a... I'm going to do some close-up stuff with the open sights, and then I'm going to have to say goodbye to this gun. Unfortunately, she's all going to be gone. There we go. That was just in case I started any fires. I thought I'd put them straight out. But anyway, that's it. That's the M14. Great firearm. Really, I'm sort of lucky that I sort of had it for a little while, but really disappointed in the New South Wales Firearms Registry yet again. But who knows, in the future they might sort of go back and look over it, because we can't really get guns, semi-autos in Australia, so we really, like contract shooters like myself, do need them, and I'm hoping that there can be some type of review and a change of that law. Thanks for watching. Nice!